And welcome to City Chronicles. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and I'm proud to introduce my new guest, Mr. Tom Duane with the City Parks and Recreation.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And Ms. Denise Marie McIntosh, like the apple, right?
Yes.
And of course, the award-winning pop star, extraordinaire, singer, recording artist, Emery. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
Oh, good, good, good. Well, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the events that are happening at Greeley Park in the town of Nashua. And actually, if I could start off with you, Tom, let's talk about what's going on.
Yeah, what we do every year is, for the last 38 years, we've done Summer Fun. It's a series of 70 different events throughout the city at Greeley Park, library, and some other venues. And it's all free family fun. Summer Fun was started in the early 70s. When I was a kid, I remember the gas rationing. And the idea was people just couldn't afford to go out of Nashua. So it was started so people could stay in Nashua and enjoy the summer season. Right. And what we've seen the last couple of years with the price of gas going up in the economy, people are looking for those same chances to stay in Nashua. And Summer Fun is part of that.
Summer Fun, I'm hearing all kinds of events with the library, with Summer Fun,
Yep.
with all the theater programs that are going on in town. It does seem to be people who are staying home a lot more lately,
Yeah.
like you said. So what are some of the events that are taking place?
Well, we started a couple weeks ago on June 9th. We had opening day for Summer Fun. The Spartans performed for us, and we had magic acts, we had music acts, children's singers. And then July 4th, the next big event at Home and Stadium, we'll have Children's Day, Field Day. 4,000 people will show up for that. Carnival games, bounce houses, magicians, relay races, the old all-American type thing.
Right.
And then the next week, July 7th, we have a fishing derby at the Horse Pond Fishing Game Club. And then it goes right into the Fairy Tale Festival, which is July 21st.
Now, as you said earlier, that seems to be the biggest event.
That's our crown jewel.
That's your crown jewel. And speaking of the crown jewel, why don't you talk a little bit about that, Denise, if you don't mind?
Oh, not at all. The Fairy Tale Festival is designed to promote literacy. So we do that in a number of ways. We start out with an array of acts on stage. The scene changes almost every 10 minutes. So we have different performers in to give the feeling of a story, to get them motivated to want to read more. Then we have we have 46 different businesses that have donated to make this event happen. So last year we were able to give out over 2,000 books. So every child will go home with a free book about this year's theme. The theme this year is around the world in 180 minutes. And we're determined. We're traveling west and we'll do it. So we'll start off in New Hampshire, and Marie will lead us out of California to China, where Dancers Loft will come in with different dance routines. The mayor will come in and read a story of the places you'll go from Dr. Seuss. Well, all of that's going on stage. We also have a quest. So the quest is to instigate children to ask more questions. So they'll have 5 questions, and then they go around to all the tables in the field. They have to find out what 4 of the businesses are known for, and then there's one other surprise question. They bring it all up to the stage, they put it in a chalice. Then we have different businesses that have donated, so that with their donations, it was a gift certificate to Toys R Us. They'll give us a cue card about their company with 3 or 4 lines. We have other children that will come in. They'll read those lines and show us that they're an avid reader. So those children will be rewarded with other businesses in the area donating a free lunch for them. And then on top of that, in the field, there's 40 different activities, actually 43 with the Miss Tent.
And this is all being focused, though. There's a stage going on, and the scenery's changing, and you got the kids running around from place to place looking for questions to
Right,
pose.
looking for clues to the questions. So they answer the questions. There's 5 usually. They bring it up to the chalice. We have another child come up, draw the question, read the cue card of the prize from the other area business that actually probably couldn't be at the event because we couldn't fit them in. But they've come from all different things, from different, parks in the area, museums. So the winner will get those tickets. The child that reads it will get a prize to a local place for lunch. So
Who can go to this event? Do you have to sign up way in advance for this, or do you have to pay for this?
No, the event is completely free to the public, thanks to all of our kind sponsors. So you can be.
One year I asked some people where they came from, and I from Burlington, Vermont.
Oh my gosh.
Bow, New Hampshire, Dunstable, Tingsboro, Mass, Lowell, Mass, Drake, Nashua, of course, as far away as Peterborough, in Portsmouth. They come from everywhere. People plan. This is now sort of. They plan the vacation around Fairy Tale Festival.
Very interesting. If you don't mind, can you give a plug to a couple of the sponsors, some of the main leading sponsors that you have?
My main leading sponsors, besides the City of Nashua and the Division of Public Works, the Parks and Rec Department, we have Macmillan Chevrolet, Dartmouth Hitchcock, my company, DMVC Productions, St. Joseph's Hospital, The Telegraph, Triangle Credit Union has been with us for years, Chick-fil-A, Chili's, who will be hosting the character lunch after the show this year. And different restaurants will host the character lunch from year to year. Now, we started it last year, and then other companies have been coming into
Wow.
So
Rotary is one of them too. They just put on the big rib fest there just recently.
Rotary gets involved. They
Nashua
actually Rotary.
wallpaper.
I think we're using it this year, Denise. The Rotary donated to the city years ago a portable stage, and we're using it this year. So
Yeah. So we have the Rotary Club of Nashua, Nashua Wallpaper and Paint Print Solutions, Quality Pressing, TD Bank, UPS, 95.7 WZID, Frank FM, the YMCA of Greater Nashua, Collins Brothers Chowder, Dudley Concessions, Nader Movian, really sorry, Photos by Judy, Target, Amoskeag Insurance, the Bronx Industries, Chick Bolio, Crown Linen and Uniform, Dr. Charles Pipolis, Gate City Fence, Harris Trophies, HGW Wells & Son, Lamprey Healthcare, Maynard and Lessier, the Nashua Bank, the Nashville Silver Knights, Northeast Delta Dental, Pennachuck Waterworks, the Sadler Insurance Company, the UPS Foundation, the World Schools, and just in case I missed anybody, Granite State Credit Union, the Nashua Police Athletic League, and the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Nashua.
That's quite an extensive list.
It is. It's a community event, and it's all provided for free to the communities.
It seems like the more I interview people, the more I get out there, the more I see how active people are involved with Nashua. I've never seen anything so, for a city this size, it really is. It is connected through a lot of these events. So I don't want to ignore the
Well,
the
the other thing
extraordinaire.
that's come up with the Fairy Tale Festival is that it gives young performers like Anne-Marie the opportunity to perform in front of a live audience of 5,000. So now we actually have actors, singers, and dancers coming. We had one last year from Arizona. This year, the furthest is coming in from Connecticut. And Anne-Marie is from Milford, New Hampshire. So we're really lucky to have her.
And I understand you are going to be performing in New York City?
I will be performing in New York City, part of Make Music New York. It will be in Queens, New York, and it's coming this Thursday.
Okay, and what are you going to be doing?
I'm going to be performing, and I'll be having a 30-minute set, so come see me.
Okay. Well, we'll try to. I think this is going to be taped, but anyway, at least if we can get it on tape, maybe we can air it.
Yeah, definitely.
And what will you be singing? Some of your originals?
Yes, actually, my first original is coming out very soon. We don't have a release date yet, but I am planning to sing it at my gig, and I'm hoping you'll be able to tape it and air it.
Okay, wonderful. And you'll be performing here at the Fairy Tale
I will.
Festival, and it'll be your original that you've done.
Yes, I will be performing my original there too.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to ask you to give us a little bit of that. Can you do that a cappella?
Yeah.
All right.
When I was younger, you would call me a princess. Oh, you used to read my stories every night. I was dressed up in my pretty little dress. Oh, and you tell me you'll be alright.
Very, very good. I guess we can clap.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, that's, and of course, you're going to have music behind you when you
Yes.
do this. So, who do you perform with? Where do you get the music? Who is your background?
Currently, I am going to Bristol Studios. That's where I've recorded and produced my song, and I wrote it myself. So it is me. I wrote it, 13-year-old, and there's a lot of surprises in the song that you will not expect with just that clip. You got to hear the music. It's spectacular, I must say.
So when they're putting down the music, is it already put down? Did you write the music, or did you watch it get layered? Did you watch all the tracks get on?
Yep, we layer the tracks and we put all the instruments together. Have this full orchestra of all these different instruments.
Mm-hmm. And who arranged all that?
Bristol Studios.
Okay. Did they write the music, or did you write the music?
We wrote it together. I was there and I said, I like that, I don't like that. And I want to give a shout out to Chris. He's with Bristol Studios. He helped me produce my song.
Very interesting. And now, how long did that take you to do?
Altogether, at least 2 months
For one song?
for one song.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing, huh?
No.
Now, are you a diva so that when you get up there and you start singing and, oh, I hate that, I hate that, or do you like it, your first take? How did that happen? How did that work out for you?
Well, what we had to do was we had to do the rough takes first.
Right?
So then we nitpick it, and then we come back, and then we put it all together and see what we like and don't like.
Right.
We might take things out, we might put more in.
So after you sing the song, after they do all their layers, then you start to sing, and then you look at it and you say, oh, I like this, I don't like that. Can you stretch it? Can you put it back?
Oh,
And
definitely.
do all these type of things, and
I do all of that.
then you become a pop star.
Yeah.
Right? Just keep it up. That's fine. I guess that'll give you some mileage. Wonderful. So do you have some other songs that you're working on now?
I'm currently writing more songs that you will be looking forward to hear
Of
soon.
course.
Definitely. And I'm
And it's
super
pop
excited.
music, right?
It is pop music.
Right. Okay.
It's got modern techno in there. Something you wouldn't expect.
Right. So who got you involved with this? Did mom, dad, what? How did this happen?
Well, I've always loved to perform. And when I was younger, about, 6, I would put on these little shows. Like, I would make a backstage in everything.
Right.
Like, I would create little signs that said, backstage, do not enter. And I would put up a curtain, with 2 blankets there, and then I would just tear them down, and I would just perform. For no apparent reason. I just love doing it.
Exactly. And so this is going to be one of our featured events as the curtain changes going around the world. Will you be,
Right.
You'll be the first one?
She is going to be after. First, we have the New Hampshire Society of Magicians come in, and they create a magic portal to bring us into Morro Bay, California. And Marie will be singing us from California into China. And then she comes back later in the show as we're sailing back to Nashua from Cuba, about 170-ish minutes later. We're going to sail in. We have Rahel Lamour.
Oh, Rahel. Yes, she's been on the show.
Yeah, she's going to be doing Israel.
Yes.
She's our stop in Israel. And then Anne-Marie will come on, and she's going to lead the fairy tale parade out. And then we have the Rainbow Girls, because besides those businesses that I read to you earlier, we have 40 other businesses in the field that donate their time and resources to make sure that there's a free activity for every children at every table. And every activity is different, except for face painting, because the lines are really long. So... then the fairy tale parade goes around with the Rainbow Girls, our fairies. And then Anne-Marie sings them out, and they go all around the park.
If people want to find out a little bit more about what's going on, can I start with you, Tom?
Sure.
How did they get in touch with you or to get a calendar?
We have
of events?
calendars, 13,000 calendars available. They're out there in the community, but you can call, go on our website, www.gonashua.com. Parks and Recreation, you can download a calendar. They're all around the city, library, City Hall, Janot's Market, Bright Spot. They're there. They're out there. We have them in our office at Greeley Park if you want to come get some. It's
Right off of Concord Street.
right on Concord Street.
In case, if you're from Nashua and you don't know where Greeley Park is, well,
You will that
you
day.
will, right. And Denise, how do we get in touch with you or in your?
Well, it's either at dmvcproductions@comcast.net if you want to be a performer or try to reserve a table for next year.
Next year.
Perfect.
I want to be on that list. So you
Okay,
just put
I
me
have
that
you
list.
on the list. I have a list of performers already waiting to be in next year's show as well. So my show, usually, this year we booked out in January. Next year we'll book out early fall at this point.
And the theme next year is going to be about water.
The theme next year is about the seashore. The hint for next year's show, we try to hide a hint within each show, is with our greeter. So she's the guardian of oceans and sea life. Her name is Giovanna, and she makes mermaid crowns, so it gives you an idea of
We'll
what
have
she
to write
does.
a song about
There
that
you
for
go.
next year. Okay.
And then they can also go to the the Facebook page. It's Fairy Tale Festival, just at www.facebook.com, Fairy Tale Festival, and they'll get updates. Usually a few months before the show, we'll give them an update of every activity that's going to be in the field, every performer. We give them a bio. We give them a link to their website so they can learn more about the companies that get out in the community and just back things like this. So it's designed for families. They'll have a great time, and they'll all go home with a free book to read through the summer.
And let's pray for some good weather.
Always have it.
Yeah.
Never a
Yes.
problem.
Now, before we end, we want to, how do we get in touch with you and find out where we can locate your music? Is there a website for you?
Yes,
Let
www.emeryofficial.com.
me say that again. I'm sorry. I'm good.
www.emeryofficial.com. Emery spelled E-M-M-A-R-I-E. It's not Emery, it's Emery.
And Marie.
That's right.
And on Facebook and Twitter, follow me, Emery Official. It's all Emery Official. Nice and easy.
So break a leg in New York.
Thank you.
Yeah, never say that other thing, right? So is there anything else that you want our viewers to know?
This is not, people plan their vacation on Fairy Tale Festival. We talk to them and they do it, and it just gets bigger and bigger each year. So it's always a challenge for Denise to how you're going to top next year. And she's already working on next year.
Now, I guess the trick is you got to come early because parking is a mile long.
It's
can
a
be
mile
a
either
mile.
way on Greeley Park.
But they
Usually we'll contact the local church so we can use their parking lot as well.
Okay, right.
And the other thing is there's a ton of parking behind the stage at Greeley Park if
Right.
you go all along the soccer fields. So if people could come out and park back there, that's great. A lot of our volunteers do, but there's still so much more room.
Wonderful. Well, we want to thank you for coming on the show, and we wish you the
Thank
best.
you for having us.
Oh,
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we'll be there.
Great.
I don't know why I haven't gone to this. This is great.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll be right back with our next guest. And welcome back. And I'd like to introduce my next guest, Mr. Paul Ingbretson. Do I pronounce that right? I've known you for a while now.
Who does?
Exactly. Is it Ingbretson?
Ingbretson.
Ingbretson, right.
Just the way you said it.
Well, and I'm having you on a more personal level because I know that you sit on the Redress of Grievance Committee, but one of the things that I know about you is that you're an artist.
That's correct.
And you are...
My life calling.
Your life calling. And I wanted to talk about that because I recently visited you at your studio, one of your studios, at least the one in Manchester, and I was overwhelmed. First, at how long it was, and then all the little studios that were inside.
Right.
And I immediately realized that you're not just an artist, you teach.
Right. Yes.
And I didn't even need to, you didn't even tell me that, but I started seeing students in these cubicles and
Right.
looking at some of their work.
Right.
So,
Yeah, you are. And thank you for coming over on behalf of that Redress of Grievance individual. Yeah, the studio is long and thin because we actually have only the space that actually receives direct north light. And when I got to that building, the wonderful Langer family, it's the Langer Place, was good enough they had that space more or less broken out that way. And they said, well, we'll widen it. We'll give you another 30 feet. I said, stop. Just what gives natural light. So we're in the space maybe 40 feet from the window altogether, and there's a wall down there, and it runs on for 6,000 square feet or so. So it runs on and on. We have 18 working studios, and my approach to painting is that a person has to, first of all, receive hands-on critiques of the work they're working on. It's not exercises in a classroom. That's the 19th century training in the atelier. What happened in the 19th century was that individual painters would teach in their studios or someone would find studio space where they would paint their personal pictures and have an artist come in. And so what I'm doing is personal instruction and I do critiques on the work that they're working on. And the whole basis of what we're doing is to teach from picture making.
Interesting. And when you say picture making, is it portraits or is it pairs or?
Right. Well, the Sir Joshua Reynolds of the Royal Academy in England from back in the time of our founding in this country, he was one of the contemporaries. He said, if you can paint a still life, you can paint anything.
Interesting.
And so our basis is still life painting. And for a variety of reasons, that was the training I received, for one. So I actually know that approach to it. But then, of course, we move on to portrait and figure work as well. And landscape less so. I don't organize around that. I'm a winter studio, and New Hampshire is not a place where you paint landscape in the winter much unless you're brave.
Right. Well, you started off your conversation with something about the north light. I find that's intriguing to me. Explain that. You don't want the eastern or the western. You want
the northern, right? Well, it's kind of interesting because what you have to have is steady light. And what side of your building, if you remember, you know what it's like on the southern side of a building, that's the side the sun comes in all day. You know, the sun comes up, sun goes down, all day long it's on that southern side. It goes the other way, I guess.
Right.
But so the sun coming in and then moving across the floor would change your light every few minutes as you're painting on something. And so the shadows would be lit on this side, the next moment the shadows would be on this side, the light would be on one side, you know, switching. And of course, there'd be glare off the floor and off of objects and all sorts of random kinds of ways because of the sun. So what people found that historically was the north side is a steady light. And that goes way back. Everybody has known that. Probably forever. I wouldn't be surprised if that goes back to the Greeks or somebody if they were working on it.
So you're not using overhead lights at all. It's basically the ambient light coming from the windows.
Right. No artificial light. And Sir Joshua Reynolds also made a point about that. He believed that the best light was from about 30 degrees up, a window about 6 by 6 feet. We're bigger than that, but you'd notice our windows are pretty good size.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, the funny thing about that, finding that building in the Langers was, what the thing was really fun was that I'd already looked at 13 other buildings in the town of Manchester trying to find a place.
Right.
And they were wrong in every one way or another. And finally, this place here, I'm looking at it, I'm looking right at it, and it's got the biggest windows, the best facing direction, and it's totally available. So that was the 13th after 13 tries, 13 other buildings.
Yeah, and that's on South Commercial Street.
Yeah, 55 South Commercial Street, just before, you know, when you get to the ballpark, where the Fisher Cats play.
Right, actually, when I went to visit the studio, I went the opposite way, but it's actually where
You came in the other way? I didn't know you could yet. They've opened that up, I guess.
Well, I took a left on to North Commercial Street, so then I turned around and found it.
Oh, I see, I got it.
But again, it was impressive. You also have done sculpture, too, apparently. You
saw a piece of my sculpture in there.
Right.
My early training was in sculpture, and I still do work with it. I am actually in the process right today of carving a horse head leg for a table. You know, you have to carve the whole horse's head, and then there's at his chest there's this sort of floral. It's actually a leaf pattern that goes down, and then the leg is relatively simple. But no, I do all the different things. I'm primarily a painter, though, an oil painter, and I work in pastels as well.
Right. Now, I've talked to you a little bit about music, and I thought, well, because you're an artist, you probably are going to like music, but you think it's noise. I think that's interesting.
I didn't say that, actually. What I said is I'm missing something that way.
Yeah.
So I can listen to music. I love music, but I can only listen to it for a very short period of time, and my ears fill up. I have the most, I don't know, they just feel like a cup, and that's enough. It's running over. Shut the door.
Right.
I have no idea why that is. No, but the only problem I truly have with music is I can't listen to it while I'm working. I find that a lot of the, I don't know what you'd call these things, the rhythms and that sort of thing, that you're searching for in the visual world are different when Beethoven's going on. You know, they may be or may not be, you know what I mean?
Have you noticed that when singers sing, they shut their eyes?
Ha! There you go.
They shut their eyes.
You're beginning to get it then.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying
That's a very good observation.
trying to bring in you know, they're shutting their eyes because they see or they feel the music, and you feel the painting. You must. There's got to be something that.
Yeah, you actually go silent. There's actually a requirement mentally for it to be all entirely visual. I do all of my work in front of my ears, as I tell my students. You got to work in front of your ears. Don't get into your head. Don't get back there anywhere. It's all in front of your ears. And it's very strange how the world goes silent. When you get into that world, you see the same thing as you see in music. It's all about rhythms. And we use words that are the same, tone, color, you know, it's all very similar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I was looking at a piece of work that...
I know nothing about music, so I'm not going to tell you I know how I mean that, or that means differently in other worlds.
We were looking at a painting, or actually, I think it might have been a chalk drawing or something to that effect, of one of your students, and I looked at that and I thought, oh my God, that's fantastic. These people must have a great amount of talent. And you came back and you said, nope, they're just like you and me.
You are a very good listener. I appreciate that. A lot of people don't pick that up, or else they want to argue with it. But no, I would pattern myself if you gave me something to pattern myself after. Rather, I would better say, maybe a better way to say that would be, I am most like Suzuki in the way he talks about how he trains people in music. He says, give me a mediocre talent in 10 years and I'll give you a genius. And then you see other books that have been out recently, like Talent is Overrated, or The Outliers, and some other books like that, in which people are talking. There's a third one that just came out recently. I can't remember it. I haven't read it yet, but in which they simply point out that it's 10,000 hours of well-directed practice. It isn't talent.
It's discipline.
But you do have to, it's discipline, yeah. You do have to have reasonable eyes. You can't be half blind, you know, or if like an athlete, you've got to have a body that's a little bit athletic. But it's a similar thing to what Larry Bird was talking about in the Celtics. You remember he said,
right.
How is a white man with a non-athletic body excelling in an athletic black man's sport? And, you know, there is something about the work ethic. He said his coach was always telling him about this other guy that was working harder than him. And he said, I just couldn't have anybody working harder than me. It is really about that. And, you know, and then your intelligence kicks in. But people think it's intelligence or talent. I found that intelligence on the human level is fairly similar. Now, there's some very extreme ends of talent. Of intelligence that are sort of what I'd call fairly narrowly focused. But I haven't seen that difference. And I've worked with people for 30 years. I haven't seen what I call significant talent differences or intelligence differences.
Now, let's talk about the genesis. Did it start in Boston? Is this where your studio started?
Well, my studio started in Boston because I am a Boston School painter. Boston School was turn of the previous century, turn of the 19th century. Into the 20th century, that was when they existed. Tarbell, Benson, and you'd get a lot of pleasure out of looking up their work. Paxton and DeCamp as the big four, and so the Boston School. Well, the gentleman I studied with, and I'd been around the country, seriously around the country, California and other places, studying in New York for a while, several years, and finally found somebody who had the connection to the 19th century training. And really, really erudite, really, you know, today he would be, I mean, in that day, actually, he was considered a bit of a throwback because he was not even slightly interested in modern abstraction and all that sort of stuff.
Right, right.
And of course, neither was I.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny. I've watched programs in the past where how art has changed over time, and I've talked to many artists over you know, whether they did all landscapes or all different types of art. And I've never understood this abstract art and the whole idea behind it and the pleasure of looking at it and trying to interpret it and nodding my head saying, yes, that's great, when I have no idea what it is.
What's great about it? Well, I will tell you something, though, and I use abstract art to teach composition. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. The music is an abstract form, isn't it? Music is notes going up and down in space, right? I mean, it's not
there
words,
is structure.
It's not words and meaning. Oh yeah, now there's structure in any kind of good painting. I would hold up as an example to you Georgi Kepish. He was the professor of visual arts at MIT, the director, I guess, of visual arts at MIT, and I knew him personally, and I met him on the street one day, and we were talking to each other, and I said something similar to him. I said, you know, I like what you do. He does textural stuff with really excellent color relations and that sort of stuff, but very limited in terms of drawing, and it isn't representational drawing of a person or something like that. And I said, I really like what you do. It's beautiful. But 99+% of modern art, it's just crap as far as I'm concerned. And he gave it a really good comeback, though. He said, well, you know what? 99+% of representational art is crap, too. And I had absolutely no response because he's right. Right. And so what we're doing is we're judging a form by the sort of what you might call the average and all that sort of stuff. Now, it does seem to me that and to most of us, I think that there's an emperor has no clothes element. Right. But there is one to ours as well, you know, to our representational painting. The drawback, I think, and the reason I really prefer representational painting is because you know what the poetry is about. You know, in abstract painting, we do the same exact thing, and they are derivative, right? That's say the abstract element is. Now, when they start getting into ugliness and into you know, excrement and things like that and calling it art, you're into a place that's pretty dark, you know,
Yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's never been what art has historically ever been. The word aesthetic has always been tied directly to art, you know, beauty.
Right.
And
That type of art is more, like you said, dark, and it's politically driven, it seems.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I guess it has its place in speech, but I'm not exactly, I find no place for it for me anyway.
right, but then you get to the area of abstract painting, and what we're talking about is color relations. And it is fundamentally about beauty and expression. And by the way, beauty, expression doesn't have to be beautiful in a Disney kind of a way. It can be beautiful in a very much more sobering kind of a way.
Like Picasso, or is he more of a, was it Picasso that did more abstract?
No, I mean, Picasso was mostly representational up to a point.
Right.
No, you're thinking of, when you think abstract, you're thinking of people like Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
Dripping paint. And
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, yeah.
Splat.
And yeah, and I happen to not like his much at all ever. And whereas Georgi Kepes, his stuff is, I use it as examples in composition because the color relationships are so beautiful. He's got a sense of light and all kinds of the same stuff that we love in our field. But our field, it's very difficult sometimes to teach that stuff. And it's the thing I struggle with most. I teach all year long, every year, everything I know about composition, because it's so hard for people to get that it's an abstract problem. When they come in, they're wanting to paint, you know, a beautiful little ear or a flower, or, you know what I mean? That's all. And people are just so happy when they've done that.
Right.
And it's hard to get them to realize that the beauty is in the relationships between the notes, you know, the color notes.
Right.
And you know what I mean? And the sizes of things and the kinds of shapes talking to each other and making music. And it's very difficult to get my world to realize that art ain't in the fact that it's an eye.
Right. You know, and I can relate that to music in a way that if you were to think of jazz, you know, you can think of blues, you can think of all different types of music, but when you get into the high-tech jazz, and there are different levels, and some of it just sounds so horrible.
Right.
It's squeak and this run,
Right,
and you can't seem to make sense of it.
Right.
And then you can get into the melodic type of jazz where, oh, there's some structure there that I can relate to, and maybe that's what you're trying to get across as far as in the painting world with the abstract part. But
it is. But everything that makes the reason I go to this kind of painting is because everything that's abstract is tied to meaning, and you know, isn't that the greatest? I mean, poetry is nice when it does its rhymes or whatever, but isn't it much greater when the rhymes actually reinforce the meaning,
right.
the concepts, the ideas? You know, it was a profound expression of whatever melancholy or something like that. And but that's the part. You know, one of the great ones. One of the things that really started me loving painting was really, I mean, the arts was The Captive Slave by Michelangelo, and it's a sculpture, and it's not the highly polished one, which I'd probably seen first with the ropes and all that sort of stuff. Every vein sort of noodled up and all that sort of stuff, and very fine. No, it's one where it's barely finished. In fact, it's not finished. The guy's coming out of rock, and it looks like he quit in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And it's got this incredible way of telling us about the human condition.
Is that at the Louvre?
That sounds like it probably is.
Yeah.
I know actually the other one is, the really finished one is.
Right.
I believe is. I shouldn't tell you that. I'm not actually sure. But they're in prominent places. They're not that hard to find. I think the Uffizi may have one of them.
I think I'm just thinking that I have seen it somewhere. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just kind
you
of
find it.
wondering
Encyclopedia Britannica is where I saw it when I was a kid. That was my source, by the way, as a kid. But it had that incredible poetic expression, and it was an expression of this profound sense of man's condition.
Yeah.
In a word. I mean, just in a blink. I mean, I didn't know what it meant. I just thought, you know, when I was a young man, I thought it was really cool muscle. You know, that's as subtle as my brain was at that point. You know, I just thought it was beautiful modeling of the male form. But you know, as you get older, you realize that this guy is a great poet in this. And by the way, it's hard even to tell in that one whether he meant to unfinish it. If he'd stopped there and knew he had it, because today, of course, that's become a form, an unfinished picture, and a form that doesn't really quite get that. But you see what I'm saying? So that meaning, that sense of an expression of what life means, or something that we see in life, you know, you can't get that, to me, out of jagged thrusts of black paint on a canvas and know what you're really talking about. It can have a certain feeling. It might feel like anger or something like that, but I think it's more amazing when it's connected to actually a particular event or man, in a direct way.
Yeah.
I think most people respond to it more when they know it's about them and not just sensing, oh yeah, jagged red, or whatever.
So how do people, if they want to be partaker of your school and be, enroll, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, my phone number is on my website. It's a good place to go look, by the way. My website is ingbretson.com, and they also could find me at the Art Renewal Center, the ARC.com website, and there's actually a description of my place in both places. The ARC one might be the better of the two.
Is it a college accredited or recognized?
No. I always ask people when they want to stay with me if they want to be good or if they want to have a title.
That's right.
You have your choices,
That's
but
funny.
the colleges have not historically produced great painters. And I mean, historically, even the institutions haven't historically produced painters unless these painters were also attached to private ateliers. So,
Which begs the question.
yeah.
Have you produced any
Any what?
great painters?
Well, I'm not going to give you names because they'll all get mad. The other ones will get mad. But yes, the answer is if you will go look, you'll tell me whether you. Now, great, one of the problems we have with the idea of great is that this is an enormously high bar.
Right.
There are many of my painters are thoroughly competent, and you'll like their work. You will like it, and I don't mean for trivial reasons. You'll like it.
Right.
And I've already seen some of this, so yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
And but mine's a training facility, and but yes, and a number of them. I'll just say I'll mention one. I won't give you her name, but you could look her up. Actually, you'll see her on my website. But she came to me after graduating from Oxford as a doctor in zoology, right? And she said, "No, I've done all the things my parents wanted me to do. Now I'm going to do what I want to do." And she
nice.
came to stay with me. So she had a really good thinking skills and things like that. And that's the kind of people that actually make the best progress. It's a tough thing in America, because there's the education on average is less than. Well, I was on the education committee in New Hampshire. I know exactly what it is, and proficiency is such a minor percentage. We're even talking 50% literacy coming out of high schools now.
Right, yeah.
So we know it's a serious problem. But thinking skills is what it really takes to get to that next level. So, yeah. So I have a number, most of them who have other just purely college type background or stuff, other kinds of training. But yeah, go look at the website and enjoy them there.
Well,
that isn't by any means complete. As a website, but
we'll show some pictures in the post-production, maybe.
That would be just great. Yeah.
But I was very much impressed, and with now there was this image of I think it was the philosopher, not Aristotle.
Oh, Socrates.
Socrates.
You saw the bust of Socrates.
Yes, yeah. We have that on the Ken Gids show. He's got that as part of his.
Yeah.
So
With the nose, he considered himself the most beautiful man in the world.
Right. I wonder why he chose Socrates over Aristotle. I'm just curious. This is
why we did?
No, why he did.
Oh yeah.
I'm curious. Just curious.
Well, yeah, that's a famous story about Socrates. You'd wonder why we do too, in a way. But no, the stuff we picked is historical. Antiquity, sculpture from antiquity. It's Greek, it's Roman. Most of it's not Roman. And then then after that it's the Renaissance, or we have some Houdin, the French, great French sculptor.
Weren't the Romans Hellenized by the Greeks? Didn't they get
Yeah, but there was a serious decline in Rome for a significant period of time, much like we're seeing here in this country, or have seen it artistically, and where lots was lost. The Greeks seem to exist on average at a much higher level at their peak. Of course, they built, they had the most amazing way of coming from sort of nothing and figuring it all out and getting right to that amazing sort of zenith. I use Greek vases to teach composition because they're so amazing. And what's a vase painter? I mean, you know what I mean? Think about it. This isn't what we think of today as great art, and yet these guys were doing things that you can learn from. A master painter.
Actually, there was a still painting of, I think, of a vase with some fruit, and there was some dust on it that I noticed.
You remember that?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty amazing how they incorporated that.
Yeah.
I looked at the dust on the vase or vase or whatever it is, right. and it was on the painting, and I thought, oh, that was very observant, if I could say the least. I don't know, but. So anyway, I was impressed, and I wanted to get you on the show to talk about so other people can enjoy your art.
Yeah, thank you for doing it. I very much appreciate it, Kevin. Very unexpected.
Yeah. Well, I'm impressed on all levels. Whether it's your political involvement and the historical solid background that you seem to have with our Constitution, and then to find out, when I looked at your art, even on a rough, it's the art that always impresses. I wouldn't say it's Michelangelo yet, but it's the art that you look at and you think, wow. Yep. And I guess that's the only, that's my modern term for your art.
The work that you're looking at in the studio, I'll just give you one little synopsis of it. We're Boston School. Boston School went over to study in France, turn of the 20th century. They went to study in France because they wanted that academic training. But when they got there, they found Monet. And they said, I'm not going home without this. So what they actually came back as they came back with was the color of Monet, the concepts related to the production of light and the feeling of light in the painting, and through the full spectrum color, and the drawing of the great 19th century French training, which was unlike anything that's ever happened in history. And then, frankly, I've told people in the past that I would suspect that Michelangelo would have died to study there.
Oh, is that right?
Well, I mean, he was figuring it out, and by the time you get to the 19th century, it's well sorted out, and you can get up and running really quickly. Not that it's produced greater art than what the acme of what the best stuff that Michelangelo and others have done, but that's gone on throughout history. I often use even the Chinese as examples of, Japanese particularly, but Chinese as well, as examples of art. The greatness of what art is a universal thing, and it crosses cultures and all that sort of thing. In fact, one of the ways I measure the arts, I want to get back to talking about that for a second, but one of the ways I measure the arts, the quality of a piece of work, is whether or not, and this is for representational people, for people who think, well, that's a picture of what? And so the way I think of it is, if a Japanese person can understand it, and a Buddhist can understand it, and a Christian can understand it, and you go through all the cultures and all the backgrounds, and they all get it, you're beginning to be in the right category of what makes visual arts good.
Right. And just like music, which seems to be the universal language. And I keep going back to that. But
no, you should.
There are things that do.
I love the comparison.
Yeah. Well, they are art in itself. So, any closing thoughts you want to leave with our viewers as far as your studios and what you do there?
Yeah, no, I'd say this though, that the studio is open for business. We have room for 18 people. We live between 12 and 20. We'll squeeze them in if they want to. We are a September to June studio, September 15th to June 15th. People can come in anytime. It's a full-time studio, that in the sense that you have to be in there a minimum of 15 hours a week, and so you're in a space, one of those 18 spaces. You'll be in this space, that'd be your space, and you have to be there for so many hours. It's not classroom stuff. You don't go in there and take a little class here and a little class there. A lot of people misunderstand that. So I'd definitely leave you with that idea. And, people come from all over the country. I have a young man from London now, and I've had people from South America, Costa Rica, people.
Can people contract you out to do a painting as well?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably an obvious question, but I wanted to throw that out there.
Now, if you look at the website, the first portrait you'll see as it goes down is my daughter, the one called Chloe in the Sky with Diamonds, which you've probably seen. And then down that, you might show that one at this point or something.
She looks like Cinderella.
No,
there's a new. You know what?
Don't let her hear you say that. Tell me whatever you do.
Well, there's that movie that was recently out, that kids movie with the famous lady. Anyway, she played the Cinderella in it. She looks like your daughter.
I'll say that. Yeah, I think I know who you mean, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Very similar.
The woman from Inception, maybe, is the woman you're thinking of.
I think the singer's daughter. His name is. He's a drummer and he's a singer. Anyway, we'll move on. I can't remember that. It'll come to me after the show.
Yeah, but as you go down, the next couple are commissioned portraits.
That's the word I was looking for too earlier.
Yeah. One of them is the lovely wife of the architect who did the building in front of the Fisher Cats. That building, it's a what would you call it? Not a restoration, but the look of the mill, but it's actually a nice Hilton hotel.
Interesting.
And and then the other one is a daughter of a former student from way back, and you'll see they're decidedly different in their style, and there's at least 4 or 5 other there. But portrait is the primary thing that I do, and yes, of course, commissions are delightful. And the difficulty, which persons are always hear about, is that today you can get a portrait done from a photograph. I don't do that, which means you have to commit to sittings. I'm not brutal like Sargent. It was 90 sittings in some cases, and another 19th century painter would request 200. But no, I finish at about 17 sittings typically.
Interesting.
If it goes to 20, it wouldn't be unheard of.
I
But often
was
it's less
not
than that.
known to even ask that question, but
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
I've heard people will do from a painting or
Yeah.
from a picture, but you
Yeah.
can't get the
No,
true sense.
2 hour sittings and 2+ if I can get 3 hour sittings are better. And but
Bring your headphones.
well, no, actually, there's one that's actually it's not on there. The one most recent one, just from last year, was a young woman who watched, some course on TV or something like that. And it wasn't on TV; it was on her laptop.
Right.
And and so that works out pretty well, except that you wind up with this. You can wind up with a very vacant stare, which so you have to work on that. But you have to work with her. You have to wake her up after a while and say, "Let's try this without the TV."
Yeah, interesting.
But yeah, so we do what we can. But it's important to say that because you wouldn't. I mean, I used to get all these calls, and then they would say, "Oh, but I got a set." Oh,
Yeah,
so it's better not to get those calls because
Right.
I don't want to have to tell you that or have you false pretenses. But I really appreciate this,
Yeah.
Kevin. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, and we just I wanted our guests to at least know about you and the opportunity maybe if they have an interest in art.
Yeah, IngbretSonStudio.com. Check it out, and the phone numbers, other contact information is there. Please come by and visit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us for Gate City Chronicles, and we hope you enjoyed the show. And until next week, we'll see you then.